I've been losing weight. I'm feel a lot better. I do manage to stay within the bounds of the diet. One thing I've always liked about New Orleans is the wonderful food. You can't go around a corner without finding something here that's good to eat. So this is my first night in New Orleans on a diet. Here we are at Felix's, and I'm going to order, of course, the oysters on a half shell. I don't really know how much calories oysters are, but raw oysters can't be that much. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Here are the...
And these crackers we have to get rid of because they're deadly.
This is Peggy, Peck, MedPage Today. I'm in New Orleans at the American Stroke Association meeting with Ed Susman. It's been a month now since Ed was randomized to a trial of a weight loss drug. So Ed, what can you tell us about this past month?
My first meeting after I was randomized was about 2 weeks ago. The first 2 weeks they weighed me again and found that I had already lost 4.8 pounds, which they thought was pretty good. They were also happy that I was staying with my diet to a great extent, and that I was taking blood samples to find out how my glucose levels were.
Tell us a little bit about the glucose monitoring, and how often are you doing that now?
The trial wants me to do it twice a day, but they say more is better, and the diary you gave me actually has spaces for 6 times a day. I'm probably doing it between 4 and 5 times, maybe an average of 4 times a day. The first reading they did was 260, which is, I think if I showed up with a 260 in my doctor's office, he would have called 911, because that's very bad. And then during that whole first session, after I took my first pill, and but probably more so because I was just metabolizing the glucose, it started dropping. It dropped in about 2 hours to about 220. You know, I don't know whether the pill has anything to do with it, or whether I assume my eating habits does. It has the most to do with it, but it just dropped. It kept dropping, and the last week I probably haven't had any. I've had a couple of spikes in the mid 150s, but most of the time my blood sugar has been in the ranged from about 82 to 110.
Speaking of glucose control, I'm sure you know that in the past month, the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute shut down the Accord trial after it discovered that there was increased mortality in the intensive glucose-lowering arm. I'm wondering how those findings have affected your attitude. Are you concerned now about your own glucose control?
Well, when you consider that the person who, or the average individual who would be most affected by this and most at risk of a heart attack would be a male over age 62 who was on a fast glucose lowering regimen, which I happen to be on. Mm-hmm. It has caused me to remember to put this in my questions for my doctor, for my primary care doctor when I see him. I'm on 4 different medicines. I now have my glucose under what I would consider probably tight control. If I still have it that way in the end of March when I see him, then I will probably say, let's see if there's a way that we can eliminate one of these drugs.
One of your oral.
One of my oral medicines, right? I'm only on oral medicines. I'm not on insulin at this point. And my choice to eliminate will be Actos. Because Actos has a tendency to make people gain weight, and there's also there's a signal in the class of drugs that there could be some heart failure risk, and at my size and weight and age, I'm probably also at a heart failure risk. So I don't want to compound that possibility, however minor it is.
And so I think you're counting calories now, and you're doing that when you go to restaurants, and you're doing that in other settings as well. But tell us a little bit about what you're finding out about your restaurant food.
What I've been assigned to, which is fairly amazing in my opinion, is that if I want to lose 60 pounds, in other words, reach a weight which for me would be very good of 220. I'd have to lose over 60 pounds to do that. In order to do that, I have to eat 2,482 calories of food a day. That's a lot of calories. I was thinking that that's probably what I'm eating now and gaining weight, but no, I'm probably eating more than that. I was probably eating a lot more than that. And most of the time, I'm between 300 to 800 calories below that.
What happens when you shop for food yourself? Are you doing that differently at all?
I buy lean meats, chicken. I buy steak if it's a lean steak. You know, things like sandwich steaks or top round things. But I'm also buying them in small portions. So if I cook 10 ounces of steak, I'm going to eat 10 ounces of steak. But if I only cook, if it comes with two steaks that are 4 ounces each, I'm only going to cook one of them. And then I restrict my calories and my intake that way. I buy a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables, a lot of fresh vegetables. Tomatoes, I learned were almost calorie neutral. So those are the things that I buy. You know, if I don't have it in the house, I can't eat it. And if I have it in the freezer, it's not readily available. So what I keep available to eat are celery and tomatoes and things like that that are very low in calories.
Now, we've talked about what you're eating and counting calories, and we've talked about glucose. But if I recall, exercise was a component of this. And why don't you tell us a little bit about how that exercise thing is going?
I haven't been exercising, other than the exercise I get when I'm at meetings or the normal exercise during the day. I spend a little bit more time walking around the house, not trying to find the shortcuts to do things, but look for the long ways to do it. Instead of driving the car to the restaurant that's 2 blocks away, I walk there. So I'm picking up the exercise that way. The first day at this meeting here in New Orleans, I spent the day walking through 3 different airports in Palm Beach, Atlanta, and New Orleans, and then walking to the convention center, and then walking back to the hotel, and then walking to dinner. That first day, I did crack the 10,000 step barrier.
Well, you've got your next meeting coming up, your next clinic meeting coming up with the study investigators. And tell us, what would you like to hear at that second meeting?
I want to hear that weight loss is continuing. You know, the problem with a lot of weight loss diets and losing weight is that you start off real strong, and the first 10, 15, 20 pounds comes off relatively easily, and then it really slows down. Now, they were very pleased with the 4.8 pound loss the first 2 weeks. I would like to at least do half that, so that in the first month I would lose about 7 pounds. When you up and weigh 250, 260, 270, 280, 290, as I do, and you lose 8 pounds, 9 pounds, 10 pounds, no one notices. I mean, that's just a little extra weight. You know, no one would notice that weight, and I can't notice it, other than in things like I have to go that extra notch on the belt.
I want to thank you, Ed, and I want to remind you that we're going to be doing this again a month from now, only then we'll be in Chicago at the American College of Cardiology meeting, and we look forward to hearing how this past month will have gone. I'm Peggy Peck, MedPage Today.